Welcome to Conversations with the Creator. We had technical difficulties. The Wi-Fi shut down in the middle of the show, so I'm back. But anyway, um, what was I? Where was we at? But we're gonna go back. Let's talk about it. So there was a principal at Miami Carroll City, and I was looking at the video, and the principal, was, it was the first day of school, checking the kids, making sure they were in uniforms. And, I'm a comment person. And I like going in the comments and engaging and, looking at comments. So the people in the comments, certain people were upset because they were saying her tone was too harsh. She should be talking to the kids like that. Let me tell you, as a former educator, some kids don't understand the passive talk. Some kids, you gotta be stern, because if you not stern with certain kids, they gonna run you over. I learned that myself. Whatever, they were upset about the principal and how they were, how they had on their uniforms and what they were wearing, how certain kids don't, you can't be upset with the principal because trust and believe they knew about the uniform. I'm trying to figure out why you weren't. I'm gonna have to go back. I don't think they could wear slides. And I think a little boy had on slides. Now, before you go to school, you know about the uniform. Why? And that's what's wrong with these kids. They go to school, they feel entitled to be disrespectful to adults, because I've ran into a few of them. They think they can be disrespectful. They can think they can talk to any adults because that's how their parents allow. I'm that person that you're not going to talk to. I'm not your mama, and you're not going to talk to me like that. But over the years, I have gotten that because I was afraid of, hey, I don't want your mama coming here trying to jump on me. But as I got older, as I got deep into teaching, you know, I just was like, okay, I just got tough skin. But they were upset about the uniform. And I'm like, you knew what the uniform was because I'm sure they told you. And I know they knew about the uniforms. And I'm just like, why are y'all upset? Like I said, certain kids do not do the passive, oh, okay, go tuck in your shirt. No, some kids you got to be stern. I've learned that like I said, I've learned that over the years that you got to be stern with certain kids. And it was the first day of school anyway. So therefore you set that tone. I've learned that you set that tone the first day of school and you're going to have a great school year. But that's nor here nor there. But that's what's wrong. You have to know the children. You have to, like I said, set that tone right then and there, and not wait till 2-3 weeks and then set the tone. No, you set that tone right there. And then about the uniform, I don't see nothing wrong with the uniform. And I'm just like, one older teacher always had told me that, she was telling, if the parents don't like how you teaching, or how, the rules of the school, take them out, or take them to public school, or take them somewhere where they don't have to wear uniform. And I was like, that makes sense. And she was like, if you don't like it, then homeschool. But as we know, during the lockdown, parents didn't have the capacity to homeschool. That type of thing. Parents didn't have the capacity to teach. So of course they're gonna put him in school. So if you're gonna put him in school, you have no right to claim. Like I tell my little cousin all the time, just like adults have laws to follow, kids have rules to follow as well. Some kids, have the attitude, but that's not here. Like I said, I'm glad to be back. It was a well needed break. I kind of jumped out, after the transition of my grandma. I kind of jumped back out, kind of jumped back, not jump back out, jumped into earlier, but it's great to be back. Yes, I changed the name. It's the same vibes, just a different name. Still giving honest conversation served with humor and energy. So today's topic is grieving and easy. I don't remember what episode it was. It was first few episodes where I did a part one, and I was discussing grieving and how what was that like for me grieving my grandfather, because we were very very close. We was very close. He practically raised me. That's like I would tell anybody, that's like my dad. My grandfather was like my father figure. My dad, man that never the one man that never like failed me, never let me down. I can always go and talk to him. This time my grandmother had transitioned, and it was very difficult because we just talked. We didn't have the best relationship growing up. But as I got older, we started repairing that relationship. And I will never forget one conversation where she bust out and just said, I apologize if there was anything I did to hurt you, I apologize. And that meant a lot because we know, as in the Black community, some people don't outright just come and apologize. They apologize by taking you out to eat and, or buying you things. But for my grandma to, apologize. And I think at that time it was right because I was older and I, understood or whatever. But that goes into younger. I've had lost a lot of people, when I was younger. I didn't understand death or grieving w- during my younger self. But then as I got older and people were passing away, for example, my grandfather, I still didn't understand, but I, understood just a little bit. And it was through that I started grieving my old self. And this was the beginning of, it was kind of a snowball effect when I lost my grandfather. And, you know, that goes into one of my points is coping with while grieving. It is not grieving. I don't care what nobody says. Grieving is not easy. You never stop grieving. Um, I was coping through drinking, smoking, eating, and it's probably why I was picked up a lot of weight that I was picking up because I didn't know how to grieve. I don't think there's people grieve how they grieve. And I don't think, there's not a manual to grieving. And I wasn't doing it let's just say I wasn't doing it, a healthy way. And I I wasn't doing it the healthy way. And knowing my knowing my grandfather, he wouldn't, it wouldn't have been, the happy way. He wouldn't be too happy with me with the way everything. But like I said, he would have been like, you know, in disappointment and, you know, disappointment because, you know, that's not how I was raised. But when you're in a grieving state, you know, you just don't know how, you just don't know how to. And my losing my grandmother was like, as I got older, losing my grandmother, that was a deep blow because like I said, we we were repairing our relationship. And I think that's why that blow was very devastating because we were repairing our relationship. And it was hard because we just talked. We just talked 2 weeks prior before she was getting ready to go to a family reunion. And what was it, the following week, we got a phone call, and that just kind of, you don't think of the worst, but then you have to prepare for it. And I just was like, oh gosh. And we had to say, say our final goodbyes, not, saying goodbye, saying, see you later as we transition, as she was, transitioning. It was difficult, like I said. Nobody prepares for when somebody passed. And it was, I don't even know why I wore these eyelashes because I don't. I, but anyway, so coping, like I said, comparing those two experiences, my grandfather with him transitioning and my grandmother, I didn't know how to properly. I don't even think there's a proper way to grieve. But with my grandfather, I didn't know what to do because I'm so used to being there, going to my grandmother's house, going to see him, talking to him, watching movies, watching movies with him, watching, and we, just that him physically being there. And then, you know, getting used to him not being there versus my grandmother. With hers, it was still a hard blow, but it was easy because I took what I've learned from my grandfather's passing and I applied it to my grandmother's passing. And it's easy. I'm doing better. I'm doing better with it. And like I said, I just took what I've learned from my grandfather's passing to, and apply it to my grandmother's, healthy way of coping. And I don't know if that was my grandmother stopping me or what, but I was trying to just drink and smoke the pain away, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't working. I'm transparent as possible. Um, I try to do all that and just cope. And during my grandma, because I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to feel that. I I really didn't even want to go to I didn't even want to go to, what do you call it? The viewing. It was just like the woman that practically raised me. And seeing her, it was like seeing her there, it was difficult. It was very difficult to see her because, like I said, we was repairing, we was repairing our relationship. Like I said, learning through this process, I've learned grieving is layers. It takes layers because grieving will definitely hit you out of nowhere. Because I know it really didn't hit me until I was wanting to call her. And I was looking for my AirPods, and my AirPods were sitting right by her obituary. And I lost it. Like I literally lost it. That's why I say grieving is a layer conversation. And It's been hard because things remind me of her. When I think of my grandmother, I think of my grandfather. When I think of my grandfather, I think of my grandmother. So it has been trying, and I've learned that when those feelings come up, feel those feelings. Feel those feelings. And I say, if you are driving, pull over. If you feeling them while you driving, pull over. If you can. If you at work, just when those feel up and just let them feel them because you're not going to get no better. It's not going to get no better because I've learned through this process, I've learned that it won't stop. It'll come in. For me, it comes in waves. I can have 2-3 days and I can just be good. And then it'll be one day I just hear some music and but I've learned to, like I said, feel that, then let it go because it's it don't get no easy. Grieving, it doesn't get easy, but you can make it work for you and cope in a healthy way. Hey, Ebony, and you can cope in a healthy way. But I know for me, those two, like I said, I've had people pass in I had people transition in my lifetime. But those to my grandparents, that their transition was something different. It was like a part when I lost my grandfather, it was a a part of me left. A part of me just and then when my grandmother left, it was like another part of me, you know, left. And then that just was like my whole existence was just like I just didn't know what to do and just because I miss our conversations. And I cherished our conversations and even those conversations when it was just us and nobody around. And I truly saw who they were as human beings, especially my grandmother. And I truly saw her as the woman of grace and just my granny was a devout Christian woman and I just saw her. That's who I saw her. I saw her as. And it was it was then um hmm, like I said, it was then when I saw her, when I saw them as well. But definitely seeing my grandmother as who she was and just, people telling stories about her and just hearing those stories about her. You know, like I said, grieving is a layered conversation. You know, and like I said, everybody grieves in a different way. And everybody copes with, passing. Like I said, I had a connection with both of my grandparents and I had a connection. I've always had a connection with my grandfather. But my grandmother, we didn't get start growing a bond until I got older. And like I said previously, she apologized and felt that really felt good. And it just did something to me. And I knew at that point, I knew that I needed that at that time. And she said something to me. She's like, Lord willing, I I'll see you get an Emmy. And, that's why I think I work so hard to get my film back up and running and figure out how I'm gonna do it. May not get an Emmy, may not get in me, may get in me or whatever. But it's been like difficult. And even coming up with this episode, I was like, is it too early? Is it too soon? But then I was like, if it's on your heart, go ahead and say it, because you just never know who needs it. Because I had a good friend of mine, and she her grandmother transitioned, and we talked about it. And she was saying, "You didn't tell me it was this hard," and I was like, "I didn't know it was this hard," and of course, that you, people don't let everybody's on. But I've learned that we are all on borrowed time, and we just never know. That's why you always love, you love on your people, you love on everybody, and that with my grandmother's passing, that showed me that you love on everybody, because one minute they can be there and one minute they can be gone. And like, to go back, it was for me, I've learned that, like I said previously, like, grieving comes in waves and things could trigger. I know for me, a lot of things that me and comparing my grandmother's my grandfather's transition and my grandmother's transition. We did it. My grandfather, we would listen to music, and certain songs would remind me of him. And then with my grandmother, it was the same thing. But like I said, with my grandmother's transition, I've learned to feel that and just feel it, press forward, because it's not, like I said, I'm like a broken record, but it's not gonna go away. I've learned that it's not gonna go away. It's not, but it's up to you to how are you going to feel. I've learned to don't suppress that. Do not suppress those emotions. If you don't have nobody to talk to, write it in a journal. I'm back to journaling, and that has helped me out a lot. Feeling those emotions, let them get out. Cry, do what you need to do and get them out so you can feel better, because you don't want to be sitting in that. Because I've learned through my grandfather's passing, sitting on these emotions, not letting them out. I was just sitting on them, and I was just angry and frustrated, and it was not good. And like I said, I've learned a lot, and I've I, through these transitions, I've also, not saying lost myself per se. I have shed old me. I've shed old habits. I shed old routines and let go of things that no longer served me. And I think that's why I took the time off that I needed to take, because it was needed. Because, like I said, I jumped back in. I think it was episode 20 with Mike Day. No, episode 30 with Mike Day. And I jumped back in, and I really didn't want to, but it was like, I got to get back to work. I got to get back on live. I got to do, and people would know that my grandma had just passed, because I just kept it moving. And it was after my last episode that I did that, I was like, you got to take a break. You got to take a break. Take as long as you need, but don't take too long. And I didn't take, I took as long as I could. I wanted to take I wanted to take longer, but I knew I had to get back out there, because that isolation period, once you be in isolation, it's like, yeah, but once you get that nudge to get back out there, you get back out there, and the people that, support you and whatnot. And also, I want to talk about also grieving. I've never been to grieving therapy, but I know there's a lot of, I don't know if it's like therapy, but like I said, I've never, did grieving therapy. I mean, not grieving therapy, grief counseling. I don't know if that's the same. That's the correct terminology. But grief counseling, and I'm looking into it, and so I can learn how to better better grieve, because it's not easy. Like I said, it's not easy. You can have 3 weeks and you have good and don't even think about nothing, but then it'll hit you like a ton of that. It'll hit you like a ton of bricks. It'll hit you like a ton of bricks. And I'm just like, oh. So like I said, I've been looking into, I did regular counseling, just regular counseling. But I'm, I'm, I'm looking into grief counseling. So like I said, when you get so you so used to them, used to them being around, and, and I think you just never get adjusted to losing, especially if you had a connection with them. You never get, you never, I don't want to say you never get adjusted, but let me say this, it takes some adjustment to get used to, the people being gone. Because like I said, I be wanting to call her, but I can't call her, you know. Like I said, I didn't realize she was gone until I went and got my AirPods and they were sent by her obituary. And that was definitely, you know, a blow to me. It was definitely a blow. And yeah. And like I said, not only, like I said, this was more for me. It was a pruning process and purging and getting rid of old things. And I guess that's just me, because I think I think of stuff on a deeper level than surface level. That's just how my brain works. And it was like I'm going through a pruning and purging process. And let me tell y'all, my old self was like, you can't do this. You can't leave me here. We had good times. And it just was a tug of war. It was definitely a tug of war, and just like letting go of what was in order to get what I want, and just getting all new. Like I was getting rid of clothes. I was getting rid of shoes. And for me, that was me grieving my old self. Like I've lost weight, and anybody that knows, when you go through clothes and you lose weight and you be like, oh, I can still fit this. And that's how I was. I was like, I can still fit this. No, and I can't. And it was literally swallowing me. And I was just like, you gotta let this go. I had to let go of tons of shoes and tons of clothes. And I was just like, you gotta let it go. And I had to towards the end of that process, I was telling myself, you gotta let me go. You gotta let me get out my comfort zone. You gotta let me. We had our time. You helped me get through what I need to get through at that time in my life. And I gotta, I was telling myself, I gotta get out of survival mode because everything up until this point I was doing out of survival. And I've learned that I was talking to somebody on TikTok. We had a conversation of building building a business out of survival. And I knew most of my business, a lot of the things that I worked on were out of survival. It was a part of my what I wanted to do, but it was built out of survival. And I was just like, you can't do that anymore. You have to build it. That's when I started learning to build things out of process. But in order to build things, out of not a process, out of purpose. And when I was like thinking to myself, okay, I had to start building from purpose. What does that look like? As telling myself, what does that look like? And I'm reading business books. I'm writing things down of what I want it to look like out of purpose and not out of survival. And it looks very different. And I'm not doing it out of sacrifice. I'm not doing it out of suffering and whatnot. Ooh, sorry, y'all. I wasn't doing it. I wasn't suffering. And I wasn't trying to, I got to do this. I got to do that. Because as we know, when we in survival mode, we tend to, we tend to, we tend to do things because it's, and then I did all, like I said, I did all this stuff out of survival. And I just noticed I was talking far back from the mic. But, doing these things out of survival. And survival, being in survival, it's comfortable. And it's familiar. And of course, when it's something that you've never done, of course it's scary. Because I know, even though, I come from business owners and teachers and all that stuff, this is scary. Even teaching, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was scary. But once I found out, doing things out of purpose, it has been better. It has gotten better. And just getting out of survival and like letting things go and just being like, you cannot get to where you want to be being in survival, blah, 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 being in survival mode. Because I've learned you would do anything when you're in survival mode. And I just learned I had to just get out of survival mode and just let all of it go. And don't pick it back up and stay out of survival mode. It's been difficult, but the human side of me wants to be comfortable. But I'm like, how are you supposed to get what you want when how are you supposed to get what you want when you're in your comfort zone? And I'm literally telling myself, like, how are you supposed to get what you want when you're in your comfort zone? And, I took, been taking that leap and just doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And then I also, just grieving, just what would people think? I've been gone for so long. What would people think? Oh, she fell off. She quit. No, never that. Never that. One thing I'll take breaks, but I'm not going to quit. And I'm learning that people that support you going to support you. And to anybody who, to anybody who, is going, who is grieving, I'm going to say it again. Feel those feelings so you can get through it. And one thing that I do to cope with my grandmother being gone is it may seem strange to some folk, but she used to use the cocoa butter Vaseline cocoa butter lotion, and I have the exact same lotion that she used. Is that very lotion, and that was one of the ways that I cope with my grandmother being getting the same. It may be kooky to some people, but for me, that has helped me get through my grandma passes getting the lotion, the cocoa butter Vaseline lotion, and it has helped me a lot. And also learning how to cope, you know, after my girlfriend. And then what I did with my grandfather's passing is I just listened to music that he would listen to. And whether it's jazz, blues, Parliament, the Funkadelic, Bootsy Collins, George Clinton, those were things that I did to help me cope with my grandparents. And another in music with my grandmother as well. She loved her some Holland O. She loved her some Tony Braxton. She loved Anita Baker. I think Cher too. She loved her some Tina Turner. Those were the things for me that helped me cope with. It may not work for everybody. I'm going to say this disclaimer. What I just said, it may not work for everybody because some people still get triggered. That's why I always was like, is it too early to talk about it? Is it too early to do this? And then once I tried it, like I said, listening to the music, you know, when I get out of the shower, using the lotion my granny used to use, it helped me a lot. It actually softened the blow because for myself, I thought I was going to be triggered, but it actually softened that blow for me and just, like I said, it's trying and I cry, but it's not as much as much, it's not, let me not say as much. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Like I said, grieving is a process, like healing is a process. And like I said, I was grieving my old self. I was grieving my grandparents. And even though my grandfather passed, I think it's been like 5-6 years since he passed. And just grieving him. And then on top of that, grieving my grandmother, grieving relationships with people I no longer talk to, and it just was a lot. And I just had to take that time out for myself to just get myself together and get myself in order and just be able to get rid of the old so I can purge what I needed to purge, really let go of what I needed to let go. And I think that's some people is at some point you're not letting that person go, but it is just, how can I say it? You're just not, you're letting them go physically. Let's say that. You're letting them go physically, but they're here in the spirit. I've learned that here in spirit because I can, like I said, I can, even when I don't have that lotion, I can still smell it. Like my grandma is near, I can smell. My grandfather we used to wear Old Spice and Brute, and I could smell it. Like my grandfather, he had heavy feet, and he walked with heavy feet, and I could hear footsteps, like heavy footsteps, and they're always around. You're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel it. You're letting them go physically, but they're there in spirit. I trust and believe, trust and guarantee they're always gonna be there. And I've learned, even with journaling, if you don't journal, I say journal. journal. If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, like I said before, journal. Write them a letter. Write them a letter and either keep it in a notebook. Hey, big cousin Sissy. Um, write them a letter because I know journaling has. I have released. Oh, I knew that was coming. Journaling has truly, cause, and I'm gonna say this because it's funny. I don't know if my mama's on here, but mama, I get it. My mama will always say, write it down. And even when I was younger, I was always journaling. And my mom would always say, write it down. Get a journal, write it down. But this was my before my mama was telling me this. I was already journaling, but she was telling me, as kids, you like, what is she talking about? But now that I'm older, a lot of things that I have learned and that I was taught, I get it as an adult. I truly get it as an adult. But mama, I definitely get it now. When you say write stuff down, I get it. And I make sure, and my mama will always say has sticky notes. So now I used up all my sticky notes. So it has been healing for me. And I'm grateful. I'm ready for y'all to rock on this journey with me. It's been an amazing journey through just not through my grandmother's transition and just everything that I've been through. It's just been an amazing experience, just coming out of survival mode and just being free. It feel like I was, like I said, I have a lot of friends on TikTok, and you know, you feel lighter when you write stuff down, when you talk. And like Dr. Prophetess Jalita Porter say, it is okay to go lay on somebody's couch. And it's okay. I agree, because I've been in therapy twice. Go lay on somebody's couch. If you don't feel comfortable, if you're not ready for it, then don't do it. Get you a notebook or write it down. Keep it somewhere. Keep it somewhere personal and private. Keep it somewhere personal and private. But I'm going to tell you, this is a disclaimer. If you do go to any type of counseling, therapy, be prepared. Especially if you got a good counselor or a therapist. You thought you healed from some things. You thought you healed from some things. Like I said, if they a good therapist, they bring it up, they gonna bring it up out of you. And that's what happened to me, and I wasn't ready. But I stuck in it. Then I went back, and then I went back in. So I think I went back once, then I went back twice, and then I went back a third time. And it was definitely helpful. I still use the tools that they give me to get through myself. And I'm also thinking about getting back into counseling for adults, navigating now as adult that is navigating adult life and healing and getting through things things that I've been through as an adult. Because the first few times it was more so childhood and things that I went through, things that happened to me as a child, and just all that, getting rid of all that, and then go back as an adult and navigating as an adult, and like I said, getting everything out, talking about things that I've been through as an adult, because I've learned from I love them dearly. Shout out to the Porters. They made a valid point last week on Let's Talk Tuesday when they said it's it it's not always about the childhood. Childhood trauma. You have adult trauma and you have things you went through as an adult, and that sparked me to wanting to get into counseling as an adult, because we do go through stuff as an adult. So it just not necessarily, yes, childhood is the root, but then you have stuff that you've been through as an adult. So, cause y'all know I like to ramble, but thank you for tuning in. For those that have popped in, I thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate you, and those that will be watching the replay in YouTube and be watching on the replay in YouTube, I thank you so much. And remember, spread love, peace, and joy, because there's enough negativity in the world. And I will catch you next episode.